Hi, in today's video I'm gonna give my predictions for 2024. Normally I make this video in January. I'm sorry about the delay, we are busy with other things, but here we go. My predictions for what may happen in 2024. And of course, next year, 2025, we're gonna see how right those predictions were. Without any further ado, let's get straight into the video of today. So let's start with the Middle East. After all, it's the most recent conflict which began on October 7. Now, my view for the Middle East is that the escalations will continue to occur. We already have the attack of Houthis, we have the involvement of US, Britain, and so many other countries already pulled into this conflict. And as I shoot this video, we already have Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and a few other countries threatening to no longer recognize Israel. It's important to understand, not recognizing the state of Israel will be the equivalent of declaring war or saying that you are the enemy of Israel. Now, if that conflict continues to escalate and increase, we're going to see a problem with petrol. After all, Iran controls the traffic on the Strait of Hormuz, and you already see Houthis making it harder for ships to get access to the Suez Canal. So the increase of that conflict will bring higher prices of energy, which you already experience. We already see the increasing price of energy already affecting Europe, bringing Germany into recession. We already saw France readjusting the projection of growth for less than 1% for the year, and we see already inflation prices affecting the US as well. And once the price of energy goes up, it will be hard for the Federal Reserve to bring the interest rates lower. And the market was betting on the cut of rates, but Jerome Powell already said for the meeting in March, he does not see the possibility of the cuts. I don't see the possibility of interest cuts because, as I mentioned, this conflict will increase the price of energy, and that will be inflationary pressure, which means the Federal Reserve, the only tool they got is pretty much keep the interest rates high to see if the inflation can come down. Now, that was on the Middle East. Let's talk about Europe. Europe is going to enter recession. Germany is already suffering a lot. Germany somehow is not making decisions that are favorable to its economy. Germany seems to be making decisions in order not to piss off or at least trying to please other countries. We already see many countries in Europe facing problems. We see France with protesters, we see Germany having protests, we see Netherlands, we see Belgium, and I think other countries will do the same. We're going to continue to see strike and population asking for government for solution. At least here in Europe, I think that's going to be the pattern, and I think that will continue also to happen in the US. After all, we have been for many generations used to the idea of whenever there's a problem, we need to ask help from the government. So I think Europe is going to be the first to feel the recession. I also think China entering the recession will directly affect European market and American market. We already see, for instance, a problem with Germany. Germany wants, for instance, to sign a treaty with the Mercosur, which is the countries of South America, because it will benefit its market. The automobile market in Germany is shrinking, and if that automobile market shrinks, or the industry of automobiles shrinks, it will take Europe with it. Another thing which will continue to affect China and the first world is the real estate crisis. Office space are dropping in price tremendously because, of course, after COVID, many companies realize they do not need to pay for the workers to be working at offices. Now, those buildings, a lot of them either have been mortgaged or acquired on a loan. Now, those loans have maturation, and as the maturations come, companies are going to have to sell. As they sell the real estate, we're going to see that they have to readjust prices because without the sale, there's no way for them to readjust prices. And when those banks will start to see the sales changing the prices and they would have to readjust their balance sheet, a few more commercial banks, in my view, will collapse because after all, they want to push the CBDC. And there's no way to push the CBDC and still preserve the same amount of commercial banks that we have today. At least those are my predictions. If you have different views, please let me know that on the comments below. Now, another country that we need to look at is Japan, because Japan is the one central bank that is not bringing up its rates, and it has been doing this for decades. Now, the thing is, how far can Japan pull this off? Japan has been able to pull this off because most of the banks, most central banks on the world, they had very low rates or negative rates, and Japan is trying to keep their rates low. And the thing is, if Japan continues the monetary easing, they will end up killing their currency, and that's not good. And you already saw the depreciation of the local currency of Japan, the Japanese yen, has already affected its economy. Japan has already lost its position as the third largest economy. It went to the fourth place, losing to Germany. Now, Germany is a country that's on a recession. So imagine this, a country which is on recession is surpassing Japan in terms of productivity. And the reason for this is that the Japanese yen is losing its purchasing power in comparison to other currencies because other central banks are keeping the interest rates high. Now, I'm not sure if Japan is going to be able to continue doing this to the entire year of 2024. Now, the Japanese yen and the actions of the BOJ or the Bank of Japan or the Central Bank of Japan is something they're going to be looking closer for this year. Now, in terms of elections, I'm going to try to talk about only two elections, Taiwan and the US. The elections in Taiwan have already occurred, and Taiwan chose a leader that wants to be separate from China. So far, Taiwan is still seen as part of China. After all, only 15 other countries do recognize Taiwan as an independent country. Other countries recognize Taiwan as part of China. The US kind of have a double view on Taiwan. In one hand, they do not recognize Taiwan to be an independent country, but they do treat Taiwan as an independent country, and because of the results of the election in Taiwan, I believe we may see further escalation and further tension on Asia. I'm not suggesting that Xi Jinping is going to try to attack or make a move on Taiwan this year, but tensions will escalate, and eventually, of course, somewhere in this decade, I believe Xi Jinping will make a move to Taiwan, and the US may have to come on its defense. Now, let's talk about the elections in the US. By far, the most important election this year, if not the most important election for the first half of the century, is the election that's going to happen this year between Trump and Biden, assuming those are the two candidates that are going to be chosen for the election. I believe, however, that this year we're going to have a Republican leader elected. I do not see a chance for the Democratic Party to win this year in the US. I believe this year in the US, the presidency will shift from the hand of the Democrats into the hands of the Republican. And if that does occur, I do not see further funding coming to Ukraine, which means Ukraine is not going to have any way to fight the war unless Europe helps. But remember, Europe is going into a recession. I do not see how Europe is going to be able to deal with the recession and yet help Ukraine. So I think this year may be the last year or a very decisive year for the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Now, those are my bad predictions. Let's talk about possible good things that may happen in 2024. After all, it's not all bad. One thing that could go right is the price of oil. Let's say, for instance, there is a resolution or a diminishing on the conflict on the Middle East. I believe the oil prices will go down, and that's going to be a positive news for the world. I think this year is going to be very good for some emerging markets. I think it's going to be a good year for countries such as Peru, Mexico, Brazil. Argentina, I think, is going to be doing really well. If Milei manages to implement at least some of his policies, I think by the end of the year, Argentinian population will see a difference, and I think more money is going to come into Argentina if Milei manages to push some of his policies and survive this whole turmoil in Argentina. I think by the end of the year, the Argentinian population will see some great benefits of having chosen Javier Milei. I also think that in the long term, the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to see Argentina to be the second example of what the free market can do. One example was New Zealand. New Zealand was on the verge of collapse until we start to implement some more free market policies. I think Milei is going to make Argentina to be the New Zealand of the Americas. I think there's going to be one country in South America that is going to serve as an example of what are the benefits of having a free market. Of course, for the first half of the year, things are going to be very bad for Argentina. I think inflation is going to be very high because, after all, Milei does not want to have the central bank having control over the currency that the population uses. He wants the population to be able to use whatever currency they see fit. In that case, for South America, Argentina is going to have a great year. Another country that may have a good year is Brazil. After all, it is an emerging market. I think the biggest problem in Brazil is Lula. However, the market is looking at Brazil differently, and there is some potential for Brazil for 2024. So, with so many bad news and some good news, let's have a conclusion over the year. I think the year overall is going to be very challenging, especially for traditional market. I think Bitcoin is going to have a challenging year, but overall it's going to be a very positive year for those who are looking at price performance. After all, the more turmoil on traditional market, the better it is for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, after all, anti-fragile, and the more turmoil in traditional market, the better for Bitcoin. Now, in terms of traditional market and geopolitics, I think 2024 is going to be a very challenging year. And if you want to find out how to invest and how to protect yourself from the difficulties of 2024, please consider joining the Academy, link for that below. So remember, by the beginning of 2025, I'm going to revisit this video, see how well my predictions went, and I'm going to be making a new video with new predictions for 2025. And if you want to find out by 2025 how well my predictions went for 2024, please consider subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so you'll be notified as soon as we make more videos. This is it for now. See you guys next video. Kaboom. Goodbye.